Today on InvestigateTV, a constitutional crisis. People accused of crimes waiting in jail without legal representation.
Your right to have that representation there, and it was essentially taken away from him.
Plus, judges forced to dismiss serious cases, eroding the public's trust in the justice system.
It's broken. Public defense in our county is broken at this point.
InvestigateTV starts right now. Hello and welcome to InvestigateTV. I'm Lee Zurich. Some criminal defendants wait months, sometimes years in jail for a court-appointed attorney. The Sixth Amendment of the Constitution pledges all Americans have the right to a lawyer. But state public defender offices across the country are chronically understaffed, and that right is no longer a guarantee. Andy Parati has the details. We warn you, this story includes descriptions and images associated with suicide.
So before I ask you any questions, you need to understand your rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask you any questions, and to have him or her with you during questioning. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you before any questioning if you wish.
A detective reads Trequel Van Merco his rights, arrested for his alleged involvement in an armed home robbery in 2018.
You have information but no proof. I was not there.
When Trequel declined to answer questions, the investigator pushed back.
I'm not some little punk that you deal with on the street. Are we clear? Are we clear? So take a step back and a deep breath and calm down.
The 18-year-old, who had never been in serious trouble in the past, faced up to 65 years in prison.
And you could be here for a long time.
Trequel couldn't afford an attorney or the $25,000 bail, so he sat in jail in Wood County, Wisconsin, and waited for his court-appointed attorney. His mom and sister say Trequel called the state's public defender office every day, asking for a lawyer.
And he's like, Mom, they literally laughed at me on the phone, like, yeah, right, you're waiting for a lawyer. You know, like there's a lot of other people too.
Trequel's fellow inmates witnessed him struggle too.
Like he was calling for weeks to get a public defender. They kept saying, oh, we don't have one, we don't have one.
On the Davis court hearing, Trequel walked into court alone. According to court transcripts, the judge told him you do have a right to ask questions of the officer, although if you had an attorney here, they would tell you not to do so. At the end of the 30-minute hearing, the judge decided there was enough evidence to charge the teen. When Trequel tried to protest the ruling, citing no representation, the judge told him that will be something you can discuss with your attorney.
So not only you have this young teen that has never been in serious troubles trying to navigate the system, but he's alone. He has no guidance from anybody.
Later that night in jail, Trequel took a shower, went to church, tied a blanket around his cell door and neck, and let go.
Cammy, this is Lee at the Wood County Jail. We need an ambulance as soon as possible.
He has the pulse, but we need an ambulance here.
I remember laying in my bed and I heard her yell up the stairs. All of a sudden I just hear, Trey hung himself, Trey hung himself. So.
What do you think drove him to do what he did?
I think the detectives and the not having a public defender.
Do you think he would have taken his own life if he had a public defender that day?
No. I just think it would have given him hope. He would have had a voice. He would have been able to say, you know, this is what happened. You know, he would have been able to have somebody there to guide him through the system, you know, and it's like everybody makes mistakes, but when you're in a situation like that, it's your right to have that representation there, and it was essentially taken away from him.
Wisconsin's public defender office says agency staff made approximately 300 calls and emails. The private attorneys certified to take state public defender cases, but did not find the teen a lawyer in time for his court date. The state suffered from a public defender shortage when Trequel needed one 4 years later, today, it's worse than ever.
We have a shortage of attorneys in central and northern Wisconsin.
There is a constitutional crisis because of delays linked to a lack of public defenders.
That's the challenge in virtually every city in our state.
A fundamental right to an attorney falling apart across the country. In Oregon, the state has 1/3 of the public defenders it needs, according to the American Bar Association. In New Mexico, it needs 67% more lawyers to adequately represent defendants. And in Atlanta, Georgia...
Good morning, Mr. Robinson. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing good.
It's easy to spot the problem nearly every day in Fulton County Court. People charged with crimes, waiting for a court-appointed attorney.
How long that gonna be?
If I had an answer, I'd give it to you. We are working through an unacceptable crisis, and you're not the only one.
In Fulton County alone, court records show 113 people indicted for crimes did not have an attorney this past August, many in jail for months, 29 of them longer than a year, nearly all of them black, including Demario Phillips.
How are you today?
Good.
The 19-year-old charged with murder sat in jail 11 months and did not have a lawyer for this court hearing. He says he's innocent. Demario's parents asked the judge for help.
We're trying, we can't afford an attorney.
Right.
The prices are so high.
I want to be real clear. The expectation is not, why don't you go get a lawyer? That's not required. If you cannot afford one for your son, the state of Georgia has an obligation to get a lawyer for your son. And the state of Georgia is not living up to its obligation right now.
Frida and Demario Sr. are the teen's parents.
What was your reaction when he said that?
I was shocked. We keep doing the same dance. We go to these status hearings knowing that they haven't found him a lawyer yet.
That problem needs to be fixed soon. And if it's not, I think you're going to start reading about it in the newspapers with lawsuits, and that may be what it takes.
Robert McBurney is the Fulton County Superior Court judge behind the camera.
What we have right now is akin to the scenarios that we decry when we say, well, look at the criminal justice system in China or Iran, where people can get scooped up and held without charges or without it being made clear what's going on, and most importantly, no due process. They're stuck, they're silenced, and they don't have a next court date other than to come back and see the judge who says, this is a travesty.
How does this impact crime victims?
No closure. You may want your day in court. You may have a sense of vengeance. You may just want to know that the person who did this is being put away somewhere safe so that it doesn't happen to the next person. When you call the district attorney's office to say what's going on with my case, the answer is nothing, because there's no lawyer for the defendant.
There is growing concern the right to an attorney at the state level could be overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court. In 2019, Justices Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch wrote an opinion alluding they disagree with the landmark ruling, writing, "The Sixth Amendment does not guarantee access to an attorney with any level of reliability or a reliable result."
It should bring chills to all of us when we realize that any of us can be accused of a crime.
John Rapping is president of Gideon's Promise, a national public defender advocacy organization.
Undoubtedly, there are people sitting in jail accused of crimes who are innocent. We can't possibly know that until they get a lawyer who can gather information and shine light on what actually happened. So having a lawyer early is the only way we can feel confident that people that are incarcerated actually committed the crimes that they're accused of committing.
A failure in the criminal justice system impacting the poor, including Trequel Van Marco.
I mean, my brother was never in serious trouble. We never expected this to happen to him. It shouldn't have happened to him. He shouldn't have been put in a situation where he lost hope and he felt his only way out was to take his life. He was 18. He had so much more life to live.
Many state public defender offices blame the attorney shortage on the pandemic and the great resignation that followed. But those who quit the profession tell us Low pay and lack of funding forced them to leave a job they loved. If you or someone you know needs help, please contact the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling, texting, or chatting 988, or you can call 1-800-273-8255. Coming up, the shortage in public defenders delays justice, not just for the accused, but for victims.
It's compounding the pain and agony. Yeah, it really is. And it's exhausting.
We investigate the consequences of inaction after the break. Welcome back to Investigate TV. Hundreds of people charged with crimes and released from jail, not because they were found innocent, but because they weren't provided a court-appointed attorney required under the 6th Amendment. This crack in the judicial system is fracturing people's trust. Andy Parati has the details.
Well, I wish you were here in the morning, because it is something when these guys are working.
Jay Blake takes us behind the scenes of his dry cleaning business, B Cleaners, a Portland, Oregon staple since 1951. Conveyor belts, usually full of clothes, show signs of economic strain.
But our expenses are spiraling upwards, our labor is spiraling upwards.
A business owner struggling to survive hit with another setback in September. Someone broke 2 of his windows, costing him $1,200 each to replace.
It's compounding the pain and agony. Yeah, it really is.
The man police say did it, Tyler Miller, caught in this surveillance video breaking windows at 5 other storefronts the same day. Police immediately made an arrest. Blake thought the man would face consequences for the crime. Instead, court records show a judge released the 29-year-old hours later because the state of Oregon did not have a public defender to represent him.
How does that make you feel?
I don't want to say that we feel that downtown Portland's lawless, but it's certainly, I mean, if you go downtown, there's graffiti, there's boards everywhere, so it just kind of fits what's happening in the city.
What's happening is a constitutional crisis in Portland. People arrested for crimes, but no court-appointed attorney to represent them required by law. According to the American Bar Association, Oregon has 1/3 of the public defenders it needs, a systemic problem we found happening from coast to coast. In Portland, the county seat of Monoma County, judges have dismissed at least 173 felony cases due to the shortage, cases involving property crimes, stolen vehicles, and domestic violence.
It's broken. Public defense in our county is broken at this point.
Mike Smith is the Monoma County District Attorney.
What kind of message do you think this sends the crime victims?
Oh, it's a terrible message. And what it leads to, I think, is a lack of trust in the system. You know, I came forward, I reported this crime. I expect there to be accountability. And now you're telling me that because of some decision or lack of resources at a different level of government, my case was dismissed? It doesn't make sense.
It's not just happening here in Oregon. We've uncovered other court systems across the country taking similar drastic measures to respond to the crisis. In Wisconsin this year, a judge dismissed drug charges against this man after the 46-year-old waited in jail more than 100 days for the state to find him a public defender. And in response to shortages in 2004, Massachusetts' highest court ruled that defendants who wait for counsel more than 45 days are entitled to have their charges dismissed.
It's not an exaggeration to say it is a constitutional crisis.
Stephen Singer is the former executive director of Oregon's Public Defender Office. Singer says judges are doing the right thing, dismissing cases when defendants don't have an attorney.
Not only is it appropriate, I think it's actually constitutionally required, and I wish there were more judges across the country that would exercise that necessary power, because that's the only way you're going to fix the problem.
A problem eroding the public's trust in the criminal justice system, while the accused and victims suffer the consequences of inaction.
I don't have the solution, no.
You just want it fixed?
I just want it fixed.
In dismissed cases or cases where the defendants were released, district attorneys can charge the accused in the future. But prosecutors say it slows down the wheels of justice. Oregon lawmakers approved $100 million in funds this past June to address the problem. The state's former head of public defense says that money is just a Band-Aid to address the current shortage, not a long-term fix. Up next, we'll take you into a courtroom where everyday citizens find themselves forced into defending loved ones. Welcome back to Investigate TV. Defendants left without a public defender still have to navigate the legal system. And when their lawyer doesn't show up, those facing the judge are left with few options. Here's Andy Parati.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Tony Turner. Is Mr. Turner here?
Sheriff deputies forget to bring an inmate before a judge for a scheduled hearing this past September in Atlanta.
Oh, okay. Well, he was requested, so I'm not sure what happened there.
So Janie Weaver argues the case on the defendant's behalf.
We put in a motion for dismissal due to lack of counsel. I spoke with you several times. You also stated that his rights have been violated due to the lack of counsel. We're trying to get it resolved today.
She's talking about Tony Turner, held on sex trafficking charges he says he did not commit, one of 10 charged in the same crime. He sat in jail for nearly 5 months with no court-appointed attorney to represent him.
Which is why the cameras are here, because they are here to see how this outcome is going to come out.
She filed this handwritten motion to dismiss the case herself.
Are you an attorney?
No, I'm not.
What do you do for a living?
I am a certified nurse assistant, and I also work for Amazon. So he's kind of like stuck. He doesn't have no representation at all, no help at all, none, besides the little bit that I give him.
Turner is not alone. According to records from the Georgia Public Defender Council, the agency responsible for appointing attorneys to people who can't afford one, at least 620 people charged with crimes in the state did not have a lawyer this past summer.
Your Honor, if I may speak.
The day Weaver asked the judge to dismiss her fiance's case, 2 other inmates appeared in court without legal representation.
Do you have a lawyer? Is anyone come to speak with you? No. No?
In each case, the judge acknowledged the defendant's constitutional rights were violated. His suggestion, contact the civil rights organization currently threatening to sue the state.
Did you all call the Southern Center?
Did we call who?
The Southern Center.
What does that say about the system?
The system has failed us.
Want to hear more stories like this? Read and watch our team's work at InvestigateTV.com. You'll find pieces like fraud files outlining how scammers stole billions of dollars in federal funds meant to help the unemployed. Up next, lawmakers speak out against the public defender shortage, plus the proposed legislation designed to address the crisis. That's after the break. Welcome back to Investigate TV. Lawmakers and officials respond to our investigation on the public defender shortage, at least one calling it a travesty of constitutional proportion. Andy Parati has their calls for oversight and increased budgets.
People accused of crime stuck in jail with no legal representation across the country. From Georgia.
He has no help. He has no one to turn to.
To Oregon.
And it's eroding the trust in our system. That's dangerous.
And Wisconsin.
Your right to have that representation there, and it was essentially taken away from him.
Nearly every state impacted by shortages in public defenders. Legal representation provided to those who cannot afford an attorney. A right protected under the 6th Amendment of the Constitution. No longer fulfilled as promised. An issue Congresswoman Suzanne Bonamici from Oregon knows well. Judges in her district have dismissed hundreds of felony criminal cases due to the shortage this year.
It really concerns me
that our court system cannot operate as it should because there aren't enough public defenders.
To address the shortage, the Congresswoman filed a bill this past November that could fund up to $250 million of grants to state public defender offices. The legislation also calls for up to $75 million in student loan reimbursement and pay equity with prosecutors.
People who are working in district attorney's offices and prosecuting crimes are making more than people who are defending. So the pay disparities there, we need to have programs that encourage people to go into the important work of defense.
In Georgia, some lawmakers are pledging to compel its state to provide more information on caseloads, staffing numbers, and legislative solutions. This after InvestigateTV uncovered hundreds of people charged with crimes with no legal representation over the past year, some languishing behind bars for months. State Representative Josh McLaurin says the blame lies on the Georgia Public Defenders Council, the agency in charge of finding lawyers for indigent defendants.
It's one thing to just be incompetent and be unable to manage the pressures at your agency. Yeah. It's another thing to not care. And I think really meaningful oversight would answer those questions.
This week, the Georgia Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers calling the public defender shortage a travesty of constitutional proportion. Representative McLaurin doesn't think the council's director, Amateo Ali, is fit to lead the agency.
I don't. The number of reports about her and the quality of those reports has been overwhelming. It seems to be that there's a broad consensus that she is at best indifferent to whether public defense is effective and funded enough in this state.
And to me, Republican Governor Brian Kemp, who appointed Ali, stands by the director, emailing, "We fully expect the improvements she has implemented to continue." The search for solutions to fix a problem plaguing the judicial system, violating the rights of those accused of crimes.
This is not a partisan issue, that the Constitution has a right to counsel in a criminal case. It's not a partisan issue that everyone wants the court system to be working as it should.
While national public defender advocacy groups support Bonamici's bill, they worry that $250 million is not enough. Some states' public defender annual budgets are more than the total funds the bill calls for. Despite our findings, the director of Georgia's Public Defenders Council claims her agency has enough attorneys to represent defendants in need. If you're looking for more investigative reporting on demand, download our streaming apps on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. That's it for us. Thanks for joining us here on Investigate TV. Hope to see you next week.